Hello, Timmy. I want to play a game.
You want to
You
play a
hate horror
game?
movies.
Oh no.
Yeah, you hate horror movies, yet you've never seen any of them. So how can you hate them if you've never seen them? Well, this month, you're going to be covering nothing but awful, terrible horror movies.
No. Please. God. No.
Saw is coming up next.
Haven't seen it with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevene. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time. And today, that is myself, as is our annual Halloween tradition, Tommy. Isn't that right?
Yep. The 1 month a year where I get to curate the list almost completely. Though you had some say this year.
I had some say this year because there's a movie that I watched last week that I was like, can we just cover this? Because I really enjoyed it. So
Instead of watching like whatever bullshit I was about to suggest.
let's watch Friday the 13th, part 8, Timmy. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
It's a real great one. One day I'll get you to cover Chucky on here, but that's another time. But instead, we're covering Saw. A new one just came out this weekend. Saw 10. Can't believe there's been 10 of them.
Did you see it yet?
Not yet. I'm going to go see later this week, and I'll get my review, I guess, on next week's pod. But apparently, it's like the greatest Saw ever. Like it's getting the best reviews of the franchise.
Yeah, I
It's
heard
at
it's
like
I heard it's like it's right. I heard somebody say it's like right behind one for them, which is surprising 10 movies in.
Yeah, exactly. Usually 10 movies in, it's like the schlocky directed to video shit where it's just like, oh god, they're still doing this. But as of right now, as of recording, it's at 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh after 104 reviews. That is insane for a Saw movie. I think the next best in the franchise got like 56 or something like that.
And
Um
it's probably the original Saw.
Yeah, I think the original Saw got like a 50% Rotten Tomatoes, and none of them look to be any close. So, like, the fact that you went from that to, I think this first Saw movie is good movie. We're going to cover in a bit, but to like fucking 83%, that's like, holy shit, what the fuck? Like, what did they do? What if Chris Rock wasn't this good even?
Yeah. Wait, there's one with Chris Rock?
Yeah, the last one before this that came out 2 years ago was called Spiral. It's a spinoff technically, and it's Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, and they're facing like a copycat of the Jigsaw Killer or something.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and
This is copycat killer.
Chris
That seems
Rock's Chris Rock's trap is just getting slapped over and over again.
that feels like a very common thing with these long-standing horror franchises is like, all right, well, what the hell do we do with these with what the heck do we do? Like, can't just keep having the same guy. So I guess we'll just have a different guy use the same thing, right? Like that. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
very horror trope you'll continually
Oh yeah.
see.
The worst of sequels, and I feel like some of these sequels are just like kind of retreads, or it's just like, all right, like you don't need to do the same thing over and over again. You can take a different direction, which apparently this new one did. So we'll see.
Well, Tommy, before we go deeper into Saw, what what movies have you seen lately?
So over the weekend, in order to kick off spooky season, which started yesterday, October 1st, I saw the Exorcist in theaters on the
Ooh,
big
very
screen.
nice.
First time ever seen on the big screen, and holy shit, just like the added sound of the movies when you're in like Reagan's like room and stuff like that, and like like all the fucking growls and shit that happens in the movie in the theaters are just so much scarier, and just like you get involved right there. So it was awesome seeing that on the big screen and great way to kick off spooky season.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. And then you also saw another movie after that?
I saw another movie, wasn't spooky though. Depending on how you feel about David Byrne, but Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads movie. Second time I saw in theaters, 4K restoration. It was
Ooh,
me,
I
our
wanted to
friend
go
the
see
pod
it.
Will. Yeah, it's me, my friend, our friend the pod Will, and one other dude in the whole theater. So three people, and we just chilled out, fucking loved it. 4K restoration, just still greatest concert movie ever. So
Yeah, I've heard that about that the Stop Making Sense. I do want to go see that. This is the beginning of travel season for me, so I am flying all over the country
mhm.
these next upcoming weeks. So my movie time is limited. It's going to be hard for me to get to the theaters. I kept in the theme of watching when I was flying to New York this past weekend. I kept in the theme of the most recent movie I saw in theaters, which was the Dark Knight. So, and I saw Batman Begins there, so I watched Batman Begins on my flight, and
Nice.
that's another excellent movie. The Nolan Batman movies is, I feel like they sometimes get a bad rap, but they're just great movies. They really are.
I don't know why people shit on them. I mean, like I saw Batman Begins in theaters 2 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I remember like it's funny looking back because like the first time I saw it was in theaters in 2005. And looking back, I remember how they set up what's his name, Goffrey or whatever, um, from Game of Thrones. Remember like the blonde
Oh
kid?
yeah, the little blonde kid's in it. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like the
I and everyone at the time was thinking like, oh, is he gonna be Robin in the sequel? Because they focus on him for like a weird amount of time. But overall, just the tone of that movie, perfect, and just like making it a crime thriller. Cillian Murphy is incredible when he says in the movie like, "The Batman's here." Goosebumps immediately, especially in
oh yeah,
theaters.
yeah.
So
And yeah, those movies just I feel like hit better in theaters than they do in like I was watching it on my phone on a Southwest flight. Like, it's just
mhm.
not gonna hit. It doesn't have the same impact, but it's still a great
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I'm glad I picked that one up for to watch. But anyway, this is Saw.
Mommy, there's a man in my room.
Are you sure he's not just hiding in your imagination?
Critics are calling Saw the year's scariest film.
Finds ways for his victims to kill themselves.
The suspense is breathtaking.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through.
Your skin will crawl right off your bones.
Oh my God!
Saw.
There's no such thing as the bad man.
Rated R.
So that was Saw. Saw was my first time ever encountering the franchise, which I feel like is surprising because this came out in 2004. I was in sixth grade. This
Yeah.
feels like a group trip to the movie theater kind of movie. But I was
Oh yeah.
I was just never ever a horror guy. Just never,
you
just not in my
you saw
family's
these trailers
DNA.
probably, and you're like, just fuck this. Like, no, I'm not gonna see this.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty much exactly what happened. I know this is labeled as a horror, and it definitely has its horror elements, but this was way more of like a mystery thriller, and I assume the way that's
Mhm.
structured has to do with the budget of this movie. Has a
Mhm.
$1 to $1.2 million budget, like earned it back in plenty, 103.9 million. If you ever wonder why there's so many horror movies that come out, it's because they continue to just make money at the box office.
Out of like minuscule budgets. So I mean, like by the time we got to Saw 2, the budget inflated to like 4 million, which still isn't like a ton, but that was so much more that they were able to go heavier and heavier on like all the special effects, and that's when it ended up becoming more of like a torture porn series of just like watch these people die in fucked up ways. Saw 3 had a budget of 10 million, so by the time we get there, it's just like we're just ripping cages open, like rib cages open and stuff like that, like all the terrible things you think of what a Saw movie would be. A movie that I would not recommend you to watch and not say, hey, let's go cover on the pod, would be like Saw 3 or 4, because just like watch an eyeball get like fucking squished or something like that, and like it's just like yeah, bring your barf bag wherever. But this first one is shockingly kind of tame in a way. Not really.
It's very
Yeah,
tame. There's nothing graphic in this at all.
yeah. Like if you've seen like Seven, then you can watch Saw. So that's I think, and I'll honestly, this movie obviously owes Seven a lot, debt to it, because essentially kind of very similar structure and way, and like kind of similar vibe and stuff like that. You even have like Day Glover playing like essentially a Morgan Freeman type role,
Yeah.
um, in a way. I mean, I was joking to you earlier that like in terms of Saw, the budget was 1.5 million. So like, you can't afford Morgan Freeman. Dan Glover's available. Should we go for him?
He's $200,000 for 2 days of work.
Yeah, exactly. He did end up doing 2 days of work on this movie.
Did he
Which is
actually? I
hilarious.
didn't look that up. I
Yeah.
just took a guess based off his screen time in the movie.
Yeah,
And they just
yeah.
kept reusing takes of him, and I was just like, oh, they only had him for a couple days. They were like, Danny, we're getting your money out, our money's worth out of you.
Yeah.
And
We
it
gained
takes
one
fine.
lethal
It
weapon,
takes fine.
guys.
It
Yeah.
has a little bit of that Ed Wood to it, where it's just like, don't you want a second for protection? No, come on, it's fine. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's apparently what ended up happening. That like, he didn't have James Wan, who directed this movie, didn't have enough time to like set up all the shots he wanted to. It made it more like Hitchcocky and stuff like that. But instead, it just ended up being just like crazy, just like Fast Times, like short takes and shit. So, but overall, though, this is end up being an effective thriller. I mean, like, I think this ends up being like a total line of like, there's not like gratuitous gore scenes of just like terrible shit just happening. It's more psychological in a way. And I'm torn sometimes how I feel about the editing in this movie. Because the editing, especially during the traps, is so kinetic and it feels like you're in some like new metal fucking early 2000s music video. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yes, definitely. Especially at that last shot where it's just like a montage of everything, and I was just like linking repeatedly, like what is going on, and then the movie ends.
Yeah.
But I think the main character, Lawrence Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, who I thought did a good job. It was very interesting to watch his psychological descent into madness, because he wakes up in this room with the guy Adam, and we don't know anything about these two characters. And Adam is absolutely freaking out, losing his mind, and Gordon kind of keeps it composed. But this is mostly a story about him being targeted for not appreciating like the life that he has by a man with terminal cancer, who ends up being Jigsaw. And I think that's one of the key things, because at first you're like, oh, I like this Gordon guy, so like it does a good job of getting you invested in the character. And then the more and more you learn about him, where you're just like, oh, he's like beating on his wife, like he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
You start to not, it confounds that character, but I think Eels did a good job of keeping that like stoicism together in those dark moments, and the film does a good job of like revealing that information to the point that you're then invested in what's going on. Because he gets involved in one of the Jigsaw murders like 5 or 6 months before he gets captured, because they find some tool of his at the scene of the crime, and he needed an alibi, and he's like, I can't really say what my alibi was, and they were like, listen, if you don't want it to get too involved, you just got to say what it was. And the alibi was obviously, he was not,
I'm cheating on my wife. Yeah
he's not at home.
One thing, I mean, his performance in general, I mean, it is funny that this movie, the two leads, like him and Lee Winnell, who wrote this movie, and have gone on to direct Invisible Man, but they're both doing American accents here, and for the most part, I think it works, and I don't really feel the cracks in like Cary Elwes' American accent, like at all.
I didn't even know they weren't American, so I didn't really feel that. I felt like,
well, like in The Princess Bride, that's his like natural accent, I feel like.
Oh, okay, that's where he was from. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he had a very it was like very like Atlantic accent, like not really defined to one region, like very kind of almost classical Hollywood accent.
Yeah. In that way it ended up working, but like his performance I thought was good. I mean, like, I think that one thing about this movie, that for its reputation of being like, trap heavy and shit like that, the scariest parts of this movie, or like the most effective for me, were the moments that didn't involve the traps, and instead involved like, the moments of like his daughter that we saw in the trailer right there. Like, there's someone in my closet right now, and just that alone,
that's
like,
horrifying.
Like, exactly,
absolutely horrifying. And it is that kind of mystery element of like, who is the person behind this? Because it leads you to believe pretty much all the way until the last minute of the movie that it's Zep, this we see him in one scene. He's an oratory at the hospital, and he was he made a comment about who the patient was, like while Dr. Lawrence was kind of just talking about this man's conditions or whatever. And you're like, wow, so he really like possessed. But it turns out Jigsaw had poisoned him and made him, you know, have to either kill Lawrence or kill his wife and his kids.
So, as someone that didn't see this movie, were you even aware of like this is a movie with a twist ending, like at all?
No, not a clue.
Yeah, so like you just went completely blind. So like, how do you feel the twist landed? Because the end of twist ends up being that Michael Emerson, the guy from Lost, is the killer, and like makes sense because he's a creepy fuck, and like all the movies you see him in, he's like one of those character actors, and you're like, okay, you're fine, quick shot right there, and instead it ends up being the dead body on the floor the whole time ends up being Jigsaw, and he's the one who fucking orchestrated everything.
I feel like Jigsaw somehow staying up like that is like staying still like that is probably the only most unbelievable part, that they like he just laid there for 15 hours in a room.
Jigsaw was like some fucking like Krav Maga bullshit where he does some yoga where he just meditates for fucking hours and something like that. You would expect at one point like some shit would happen.
Oh yeah, that was what was kind of wild to me, was that he like you just wait, you see with the flooding at the beginning of the scene, like him drowning, then he wakes up and he looks over at the at the you just see a body with the brain exploded on the floor once the lights get hit up, and you have no idea what's going on. You're just in this room. Like for me, because like I wasn't aware that this didn't follow like the conventional horror structure of like you get the background of these people for 15 minutes, whatever, like the 2 or 3 people that are going to be the victims, they all get together, invited into a trap room, right? The doors lock. Let's play a little game. Like that's kind of what I thought the movie was going to be.
Yeah. And there's definitely been some horror movies like that, but like you were expecting like, it's teens after there's a movie called like Haunt that's like teens after a Halloween party, and they go to this fucking crazy room or something like that, and like it could have been some bullshit like that.
Like night, the Friday the 13th kind of stuff, where it's like they're at the camp. That's what I was kind of picturing going in. So it immediately got my attention, like starting off in that setting and then cutting back and forth from the plots. I felt like some of the timeline stuff, like it didn't give you the clearest sense of where they were jumping to, like if it was present, if it was a couple months ago, like where it was kind of jumbled in there. Like I felt like just a little tag on the bottom of like 3 months ago would have been helpful in certain instances, especially in the instance with Danny Glover and his partner. They find Jigsaw's like hideout and they have him trapped, and the partner dies, and that leads Danny Glover to absolutely lose his mind.
How do you feel about Danny Glover in this movie? I thought that
I felt like he was phoning it in a little bit.
To an extent, there's some points where the movie where like they just have Danny Glover just to get him on camera, and he's like, "Hey, Amanda, why don't you tell us what happened?" Immediately, just like transitions to football.
It wasn't a Lethal Weapon performance, if you want to put it that way. But he was fine. But it felt like I just picture it from his perspective, right? It's this franchise, horror movie called Saw with $1 million budget. They're giving you 1/10 of the budget just to show up for 2 days to film. Yeah. This movie's never going to become anything. Like it's just going to be a red box movie or whatever.
This was apparently originally conceived to be like a straight to DVD movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like it has that kind of feel to it. So like him coming in with that kind of performance isn't there. Like I didn't think he was bad by any means. Like I thought he was totally fine. I just felt like he was
serviceable.
He wasn't dialing it up 100% for sure.
Yeah, I mean overall a lot of the performances feel good. I mean Michael Emerson probably would be the creepiest in terms of anything. He just kind of carried it.
Yeah, he was the creepiest, and they did a really good job of not revealing Jigsaw's face to lead you on to thinking that it was Michael Emerson in that scene, like where it would just be like the nose and the face, and it wasn't very clear who it was exactly. Which I appreciated.
Yeah, they kept up the mystery very well, and like to a point where I think I already knew who the Jigsaw Killer was when I first saw this because I was the type that would read Wikipedia entries for horror movies before I actually dabbled into them. That's how I dip my toes into this.
You read the plots on Wikipedia before investing into it. That's like somebody who reads the last chapter of a book before they start it, just to see what's going to happen.
I don't do this as much anymore, but like it's usually just of movies that I originally assume, oh, I'm probably never gonna see this, and then like fucking like years later, I'm like, oh yeah, let me watch this, and then it's like, fuck, I remember the plot somewhere from my Wikipedia years ago.
See, so you read the Wikipedia and then like it'll just hit you like a brain blast from Jimmy Neutron. Like you're sitting in the chair watching it
exactly.
3 years later, like, and it just like you just like zone out and like the Wikipedia page just scrolls in front of your eyes and you're like, oh
Yeah.
yes, I do remember this. Okay, yes, very good. Yes,
Yeah.
very good. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I
good.
mean, I'm good with some things. Like I'm better with like spoilers. Like I've been trying my best to. It's a movie I know I want to see really badly. I'm not gonna look up the spoilers beforehand, but yeah, the whole other discussion right here. To get back on Saw, I loved how like one shotty like the transitions were in a lot of scenes where they'd go from like underneath Amanda's desk to back to the trap room or something like that, or like go from
Yeah.
Dan Glover at his desk to he's in his car right there and stuff like that. It seems seamlessly right there. The editing right there was just a really cool like stylistic choice for this movie.
Oh, also, can I just say when Danny Glover is chasing down Zepp or Michael Emerson, and it does that chase scene, and it's just like two cars behind a green screen with they had no budget left at this point,
Yeah.
and it looks so bad. And I was like, this is charming. I kind of like this. Like they didn't give they were just like, yeah, we just need to illustrate two cars chasing, and it's just like straightaway cuts of Emerson driving, then it cuts to Glover following him in a different car, and that's all we see of the chase. And I was like, I like that. That's like a 1940s like little hint and a
You get
twist of it.
around. I mean, overall, it's very creative in terms of like the whole energy and like a lot of the traps. Like, I think that the kinetic style during the traps kind of helps the budget in a way. And it does give its own feel. Like I was saying earlier, I'm not sure how I feel about it because like it does feel like a new metal music video, but I think it just does put this in a time and place that it gets me a little nostalgic, but it works. It makes it just seem like this is how insane it is right now. Like you have a timeline and it makes you just feel so fast and overwhelmed, like on ADD, because that's what you feel in that movie. If you're in that scenario, you'd be panicking. Probably.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, what the fuck am I gonna do? I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm fuck it.
Well, would you have been Adam or Gordon in that situation at the beginning?
Definitely Adam. I would have been like freaking out. Like, fuck
Yeah,
it.
I think I would have been more of a Gordon. I'd like to think that at least about myself. Just
there's
more
sometimes
calm and collected.
There's sometimes, especially in the later day sequels, where it's just like, in order to survive this trap, you have to cut off your arm and then place it on the scale right there, or else your insides will get ripped open. It's just like, I'm just gonna die. Like, fuck it. Like, it just isn't worth it to go through all this shit. Jigsaw, come on, man. Like, throw me a literal bone here. Come on, man.
Yeah, you're yeah. Well, that I haven't seen any of the sequels. I don't know if I'll ever watch another Saw movie, to be completely honest. But I from that situation, I would have felt fairly comfortable. Just a chain to the ankle, like nothing too bad. Like not great. Like I'd prefer to wake up in my bed, not in that situation exactly. But
Yeah.
I think it could have been worse.
Like, all right, he didn't cut anything off.
Yeah, you didn't cut anything off, and that's all I can really ask for at this point in time. So Tommy, going back to you, did you see this in theaters originally when it came out?
No, because that would have been 2004.
You would have been in fifth grade.
Yeah, I would have been going into fifth grade when that came out. So that was a little bit before my horror movie extension. That was about 2 years before. But I do remember my sister went to go see it. She told me that at like a restaurant one night. I got for her grandparents. I was like, "What is this movie?" Because it's almost like the playground factor, almost of just like if as a younger brother, younger sibling or something like that, I'd hear like movies that like I wasn't supposed to see that like my siblings would tell me it's like, yeah, there's this killer that like he'll like make traps so like, he'll die instantly, like you don't do it in time, and it just blew my fucking mind. I didn't see this until Probably 2012 or 2013, like until college. I feel like.
Really, you didn't see this until college?
I think college or like late high school. So I just didn't get around to it for a while. But when I did, I thought it was pretty solid. And like, I've seen a good amount of these movies, but a lot of them were kind of half watches because they're just shitty. But this first one, I think it's a good start.
It's definitely a good start, and this you can definitely see like the framework of where they could go with this. Because like I would say, like the scariest element is that woman Amanda with like the trap hedge, and she having to dig through the guts of the guy to like get it out. Like that was the goriest thing in the movie. Like because even when Gordon starts sawing off his ankle, it's not like it's not gory. Like you don't see that. You just see him like start it, and then it like a little bit of blood, and then it cuts.
Yeah, so it's just a great amount right there. So this is the question I was thinking immediately. I had to write this down when I saw this in the movie. So you're Adam Lee Manuel, and fucking Cary Elwes finds a cigarette in this fucking random cellar dungeon that you're in, tosses it to you, and lands on the floor. Do you smoke that cigarette?
I don't smoke cigarettes, so no.
Oh yeah, well, there you go. But I mean, like immediately, even if I was a cigarette smoker, I'd be like, do I really need it that badly? Like, I'm probably gonna get fucking like the diseases off that fucking floor.
Yeah, what floor? Like, look at where you are, and you're gonna pick something that's been on the floor. Like,
there's
disgusting.
There's a like thing in the Connecticut music scene. There's a place called Toad's Place, a club in New Haven.
I know.
And one of my coworkers, his fellow coworker, got banned from Toad's because he said on social media that the producers of Saw must have been so pissed off that they could have just filmed in the Toad's bathroom instead of a Hollywood studio.
Yeah, listen, I have seen the what was it called? Not Darby's. It was like O'Gill's or something like that. We had a place that was like the bathroom. I remember vividly a girl walking into the men's room and just letting it go on the floor. It was one of those kind of bathrooms, it was
shit happened.
Nobody should ever step foot in that room. Just hold it. Do not even think about using the restroom at a college bar or a college music venue, because the things that go on in there are revolting to their core. It's like porta potty bad. Like I'd rather have gone in a porta potty than in those bathrooms.
God. Yeah, and that itself. So I mean, like, thankfully they didn't get into that in the Saw movies. I don't think they do it at all. So, but still,
that would be horrifying. I wouldn't keep my cool. I wouldn't be calm, cool, and collected if I woke up in a porta potty.
Porta potty just full of shit, and you're like,
there's a key down there for you to dive into. We're giving them ideas. They're gonna do this in
Saw 11. Yeah. You have to go into the bathroom and train spotting, and you have to do it yourself. Except it's
gross.
There's no fantastical element in this. This is actually just you crawling through shit.
Yeah, that is that would be pretty that would be Saw inspired. Like I could 100% see it, but that would be fully revolting, like to like my core.
That's the other stuff. I mean, apparently this new Saw movie, they're giving out barf bags for people in case they get a little too sick.
Oh, so you're just excited. You must be rearing to go.
I can't wait. Someone saw Terrifier too. So
that's like just so up your alley, Tommy. I love that you like these disgusting horror movies that just make me want to crawl out of my skin.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
All right, Tommy, who is the star performance in this movie? I mean, you would think it would be Danny Glover, but it's not him.
He's just pretty much just like sleepwalking through the role. I mean, he's fine, but whatever. Cary Elwes is a good performer in this movie, but I wouldn't give it to him. I would give it to Michael Emerson because I think that he just gives so much menace and creepiness to this movie that like he is not even the main killer of this movie. I mean, like Jigsaw, we get to see him in the sequels, and it's a good performance by Tone Bell. But in this movie specifically, the fucking creepiest thing ever is just like him peering in the closet right there, and him just like fucking like, well, it's time for your kids to die or whatever. And he just gave a lot of just menace and unsettlingness in this movie.
See, I think it's Cary Elwes. I don't think Michael Emerson's in the movie enough for that to be him. And like you kind of think halfway through the movie that it's that Mike, that whoever Jigsaw is the one that's holding Lawrence's family together. I really thought the scene where he, hears his family on the phone and Lawrence finally like kind of breaks down and realizes what's like truly valuable and important to him. I felt like that scene, like that breakdown was like a very good performance. And I felt like that was the scene that made it him the star of the movie. I think you would be right if Michael Emerson was in the movie more. I just don't think he was in it enough for him to have that distinguished title. And it's not like it's Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
Well, yeah, that's fair. It's not as great as there, but like I feel like just he does stick with me in this movie a little bit. So, and it's almost a shame that he was killed off in the first movie because it would have been cool to see him just like, keep on going on or be a recurring antagonist because he plays a good creep.
So Tobin Bell plays Jigsaw. How many of them is he in?
He is in every single Saw movie except for the Chris Rock spinoff.
Okay, interesting. Because you said that was supposed to be a
copycat
a copycat killer.
Yeah. So instead, I mean, spoiler for Saw 3, I doubt you fucking give a shit. Jigsaw, the character, dies in Saw 3. So in Saw 4 through like 8, he'll just appear in flashbacks and just be like, fuck it, like whatever, like we're just gonna flashback to Tobin Bell because like this is the franchise at this point. And apparently Saw 10 takes place in between Saw 1 and Saw 2. No way, just to be like, let's bring fucking back Tobin Bell so we can get him in the fucking movie again.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at, they cranked these things out. Saw 2004, Saw 2 2005.
It was a year. It was
yearly. It was a yearly franchise. Holy cow! Yeah, no wonder why they were just awful.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Because at that point it was like whatever. But I mean, like this new Saw was the first one in 2 years. I mean, Chris Rock one. I think it's similar people, but still, apparently they focused on Jigsaw a lot more and Tobin Bell, and he is just a great horror icon at this point, especially people in that community just fucking love him.
Yeah, I was surprised how little he's like the puppets in the movie because he's like obviously the most iconic fixture of the film itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like
he's still creepy. I mean,
he's still creepy, but he's in it for like the puppet's in it for 3 minutes.
Yeah, he's only in it like a few scenes, and just every time. I mean, they definitely up the ante of that, as you can imagine with most sequels, where they just explode it and just beat the idea to death. But this is more restrained in a way, which feels weird to say in a franchise like Saw.
Did this get you more excited for Saw 10, like diving back into the franchise?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if I'm going to do a full deep dive. I still haven't seen all the movies. I mean, I still need to see 5 through 7, which apparently are all bad. Yeah, exactly. Still need to see is the real fucking qualifier right there.
Yeah,
but
I feel like this is not your franchise compared to like some, like I know you're Friday the 13th, like you absolutely adore that franchise, like A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Because a lot of those 80s franchises are like just fun. They're not great movies, but it's just still like, oh, like it's a good movie to watch over beers. Like I don't feel like, let me throw on Saw 4 where I'm gonna watch some movie with women like slowly freeze to death and like cry out for help. Like, yeah, it's a good time for the boys right there.
Just the boys hanging out watching a woman get tortured. No big deal. Like just exactly what you want to do on a Saturday night. Yeah, I feel that. I mean, that's just why I'm more of a like, oh, the boys are hanging out. Let's put on like a comedy or something, we can, or a cool action movie. That's kind of my scene.
Yeah.
But you're like with the Friday the 13th. One day, Tommy, I will let me watch one of the Friday the 13th movies just for you.
One day.
Yeah. One day. We'll figure out
Tommy's choice.
It'll be a Tommy's choice for sure. If you see us do a video on Friday the 13th, I did not pick it. I can tell you that much.
If my birthday falls on a Thursday ever, we'll release our episodes.
All right, fine. I will give you that as a birthday present, Tommy.
Which that is in 2025. So
all right, we got a couple of years.
Ah, are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
Now, Tommy, would Saw work as a Muppet adaptation?
I mean, we're almost there. We had Billy the fucking puppet right there. I mean, just create him with Muppets and just instead like Kermit the Frog. Your felt is gonna explode if you don't take this bear trap off. And just see all the felt and just like you can make it more gory right there.
Yeah.
Muppets right there. It's like funny.
Yeah, you can make it very, very slapstick. I think it loses the tone of the movie though. That kind of like
Oh yeah. They wouldn't want it to be that way. I mean, like, there's that bit in I think Muppet Treasure Island where like Gonzo's put on one of those like medieval stretchers things right there, and
Yeah.
his limbs are so fucking long that he's like, "Oh, this is a great stretch, guys. Thank you. I haven't had a stretch like this in forever." So it's be like shit, like we're like the traps.
Yeah, you would just
like,
make
beneficial.
the traps. The traps are jokes. The traps would just have to be jokes instead. But yeah, you could definitely see like a Muppet horror movie, quote unquote, and just make it all gaggy, right? Because you could just follow the tone of like a Scooby Doo or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jigsaw's like, "Oh, this trap was supposed to be better."
Yeah,
And they could be like, "Yeah, Billy Joe's the Muppets, the puppet."
Anyway, I don't think the Walt Disney Corporation has any interest in adapting the Muppets into horror films.
Yeah.
But hey, if you ever do, we're your consultants.
Hey,
we're
they
here
have Muppet Haunted Mansion, but that's I guess more PG.
that's gonna be more in tone with the Eddie Murphy film, I'd imagine. Review time, Tommy. Give me your score out of 5.
So I think it's a tight little thriller, but it's definitely derivative of movies like Seven. I mean, Dan Glover, while it's great to see him, isn't doing the best performance, and I don't know how I feel about the editing, but overall, this movie still works on a level, and I think that this is a great little start. I'm gonna go 3.5 out of 5. I think this is a fun movie. Glad to rewatch it, but overall, some things that could have been better.
Yeah, I listen. I went into this kind of being like, if this is the gory muckfest that I thought it was, I was going to have some very scathing words for you, Tommy. But it was not that. It was a nice little thriller. I enjoyed it. It was. It didn't scare me though, really. I feel like I do.
It's more of a movie when you hear about it.
Yeah,
like
it definitely has that
like,
playground. The idea of the playground effect on it, which definitely like helps a movie like this, or in the hallways of a high school, right? Dude, you got to see this movie. It's wild, dude.
A woman has a fucking bear trap on her, and like it's gonna explode her jaw.
These dudes are electrocuted via cable, but right, and it's like, okay, yeah, like I can see that, but for me, I'm gonna just give it a 3 out of 5. Like a good start for the franchise that they ultimately shoveled to death, but apparently resurrected this year. You will let me know, Tommy, because I don't have time to go see it. Unfortunately, I wish I did, but that's not the world we live in. 3 out of 5 for me. 3.5 out of 5 for Tommy. Feel like we're in the same boat with this one.
Yeah.
Next episode's gonna be a movie, Cary, which I'm very excited to cover.
It'll be a very fun one. I haven't watched it in a year, but I do have a poster of it. I mean, we're not a video podcast, but poster in the background. Great movie, Stephen King's first novel and his first movie adaptation. Brian De Palma. So
yeah,
right
and
there.
you can definitely feel his direction, his camera movement in that.
Oh yeah.
But Tommy, do you have any final thoughts for us before we retire the podcast for the week?
All right. Well, did you like your game, Timmy?
I did.
All right, good.
This was a fun episode.
Yeah, it's a fun little game. Well, anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on social media. That's on at Seen It Pod. It's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, the real game, Threads. So.
No, I haven't heard.
Ting shaking his head.
You're the only person I know who still talks about it.
Exactly at this point. But also, leave us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Really helps us out. And like we said, we're covering Cary next week, and we're ending up the month with
Psycho. Back to Hitchcock. We took a little
back to Hitchcock.
We missed some Hitchcock, but we're diving back into the Hitchcock. I was like, I've never seen Psycho, because you giving me a list. I'm like, Psycho? You're like, yeah, we're doing Psycho 100%. And even our friend Will was like, you sent over like your letterbox, like most watch directors this year, and had like Tim Burton. And Will was like, Wow, Tommy, you've watched a lot of movies made before the 80s. I'm very impressed.
I'm like, yeah, it's almost all completely because of the podcast. I mean, I have like my letterbox so far says my most watched director is like Hitchcock is tied up there, and I was like, that's exclusively because we try to cover him on the pod.
But you can't say you weren't happy that we covered.
No,
Hitchcock, 'cause
I did like the majority of those movies, and others I need to give another shot.
Yeah, we'll I think we'll get back on the train of watching more Hitchcocks, but thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next week.